Hi, everybody. My name is Melinda Gallant, and I want to welcome you to another Cape Conversations. I have a wonderful guest today, and we're going to talk about immigration. No, I don't want to talk about politics. It's not about politics. It's about immigration. It's about bringing people into our country, allowing people into our country, just like the Statue of Liberty says we should do. It's what we're all about. And he has all of the information we need to make those kinds of decisions. He's a fabulous guy, and I can't wait for you to meet him. So come along, let's have another Cape conversation. Hi, everybody. I am so excited, as I always am on Cape Conversations, but today I have this very, very special guest, and he's really smart, and he actually lives here in Sandwich, and he knows everything there is to know about immigration and all that stuff. And I asked him to come and talk with us today because I don't get it. And so he's going to talk to me like I'm a second grader so I can understand why all this immigration fluffle is important to all of us. So I have with me Matt Lee. Take it away, Matt. Matt, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Melinda. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. So now I know you're with a very prestigious law firm of which you are a partner in.
I am a practicing corporate immigration lawyer.
Yeah.
Where I help mostly technology companies, but really all different industries, from insurance to biotech, from startups to Fortune 100 companies, bring people into the country legally and to secure various legal work visas for them and ultimately get green cards or U.S. citizenship. So all on the legal side of immigration. But as a Cape resident and being involved in the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce for 13 years, we also do.
Well, all right, but you're an immediate past president. Is that not correct? Of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce.
Right, chairman of the board.
Right.
Wendy's always been the president.
Oh, that's right. I always get that confused.
Right.
I always have gotten that
But
confused.
chairman of the board, and because we're on the Cape, and because it's an important issue, and that's why you invited me in.
Right.
One immigration issue is H-2B seasonal worker visas are a critical component of the Cape's economy.
Mm-hmm. And why is that?
Well, the H-2B visa program is a legal program by which seasonal employers are allowed to bring in foreign workers to work in the United States for that peak season period. Because it's extremely acute this year because Massachusetts has an unemployment rate under 3%. The United States has
Go back. What is our unemployment rate?
It's under 3%.
Which means most people
Correct.
who want to be employed are employed.
It is considered, everything under 5% is considered full employment.
There you go.
And the U.S. economy is under 5%.
Right.
As far as unemployment rate. The Massachusetts economy is under 3%, and I don't know if I'm exactly right, but I think the Cape Cod unemployment rate is also under 5%, which is historic lows.
Right,
I mean,
right,
historic
for us.
lows.
Right,
So so this issue is extremely acute right now this year.
Mm-hmm.
It has been for the last 4 years. You know, the second half of the recovery from the recession.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever there's a tight labor market, there is a greater need for our businesses here in the Cape, especially the seasonal ones,
Mm-hmm.
to bring in legal workers as opposed to employing illegal workers or
Which we don't want to do.
or U.S. workers under the table,
Right,
which is the
right.
same thing.
Right,
At the end of the day. And it's topical because immigration seems to be the current federal administration. You know, President Trump and his administration. It seems to be the first thing they wanted to tackle. The president has announced 4 executive orders in the last 60 days.
Right.
3 of them within
Three
the
on
first
Twitter,
week.
I believe. No,
Yes,
I'm kidding.
That's right. 3 within the first week of his administration.
Right.
So immigration is very topical. I think one of the issues in this country, one thing we have to grapple with, is that there's approximately 13 million illegals.
Right.
The great majority of them all are just here illegally and working.
Right.
Okay, so it's not a matter of
You know, they're working as housemaids, they're working as landscapers, they might be
correct, mostly
picking in a
unlicensed
field.
positions.
Right,
Because you know they can't get a civil engineer's license.
Right,
Right.
right.
They can't get even driver's licenses.
Right.
To work. So right or wrong, the issue really is, do we want to deport 13 million illegals, or do we want to deport 13 million workers? Okay,
Right.
so employees.
Right.
And I am not, you know, I'm 51 years old and I've been a Republican my whole life. As you know,
I won't hold it against you.
I served 23 years in the United States Navy.
Yeah. Yeah.
On active duty and reserves.
Right.
And very few people know, but I was a federal prosecutor.
Oh,
so
I didn't know
I
that.
used to work for the Department of Justice,
Right.
Immigration Naturalization Service, before
Yeah.
it became Department of Homeland Security, and I deported people for 2 years.
Right.
So
And what
I've
did
been,
you see doing that? What did you find out? You learned something there, I bet.
I did. I learned that we're a country of laws. So
and you're an attorney, so that's a good thing.
it is a good thing. And especially as a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, you're supposed to be dispensing justice and not necessarily winning every case.
Right.
All right?
Right.
Federal prosecutors and state prosecutors and community and prosecutors that defend the Constitution and state laws and state ordinances, we're supposed to be prosecuting for justice, not necessarily win every case. And what I learned from my time as a federal prosecutor in deporting people was that we are a country of laws, and that if you flout our immigration laws in particular, then there's consequences for that. Having said that, I would say the great majority of people that I saw leave this country were hardworking, family, community, neighbors that just wanted a chance for a new opportunity for not necessarily them, but for the next generation of their family.
So what it says on the Statue of Liberty.
It does. It does.
It's kind of that thing.
It does. And then
And
there's
I understand the law, but I mean, I do understand we do have laws and we have to
Correct.
have laws. You know, whatever your thoughts are on immigration, they weren't all bad people. They were not people necessarily that were going to become terrorists or whatever. They were just people who wanted to have a job so they could raise their kids
correct.
in a country that where they came from, they couldn't do that.
And in the 400 years of this country's existence, you know, about 100, 150 years ago was when there was this whole concept of being illegally here.
true.
Because we
A
would...
lot of Irish came
we
in
would-
that way.
We invited just about everybody in the country
right,
to
we
come to
wanted
the
them here.
United States
Right.
to work.
Right.
And believe it or not, until the Immigration Reform and Control Act, IRCA, of 1986, there was no such thing as an illegal worker.
Is that right? Wow.
So we've had, you know, we have immigration laws for about 150 years. And Congress passes those.
Yeah.
And people are either illegally here or not legally here. In most cases, just simply being illegally here is not a criminal offense. It is a civil offense.
So you
Meaning,
get booted out.
so you would ultimately, if you're found and you don't have any grounds for relief, you'll be deported from the United States. Okay, but in 1986, this new law came into effect where it created this I-9 system. So many of us remember that since 1986, it was a deal struck between the House Speaker and President Reagan, and it was Tip O'Neill.
Yeah.
Local Irish guy,
Yeah.
and President Reagan. And this was in the days where they would actually go and have a scotch every Friday afternoon,
Right. Right.
okay?
Right.
And no
When they
matter-
actually, everybody talked to everybody.
Correct. So they
The
struck a
good old
deal.
days.
They struck a deal, and they said that the agreement was this. There was about 1 million to 2 million illegals in the United States, they estimated in 1986. So President Reagan said, listen, how do we curb this? Right? How do we stop it from becoming 13 million illegals?
Right.
So what they instituted was this I-9 system. So we all know that when you start a new job and you go in, you have to bring in documentation
Right.
to prove that you can work.
Right.
And most employers, not knowing what the process is truly supposed to be, is that they tell you just bring a driver's license, Social Security number, and you can fill out this I-9 form,
Right.
employment verification form, and it proves that you're eligible to work in the United States.
Yeah.
So April 6, 1986 was the beginning of the illegal worker. And it was with good intentions, right? So
Right.
the President Reagan said, we will give amnesty to the 1 million to 2 million illegals here.
That's
in
right.
return,
He did that. I forgot
correct.
that. Yeah.
And in return, we're going to institute this employer-based system. Again, we're going to go back to we're trying to social engineer through employers, right?
Right.
Employers have to provide health
Poor
care.
employers have to do
have
everything,
to
do
collect
everything.
taxes.
Right, right.
So employers were burdened at that point to verify whether the employee before them on the first day of work was eligible to work in the United States.
Right.
But there's no reporting requirements. You just have to keep these documents.
Yeah.
Well, as a friend of mine, he used to be the head of enforcement for INS for 25 years. What he said to me was, when that law came into effect, all it did was create a document fraud market.
Oh, sure, because everybody had fake driver's license, fake everything.
Social Security cards, and
Yeah.
in those days, you didn't even need a fake Social Security card. So until
Right.
September 11th, until about 2003, everybody, and technically today, everybody's eligible for Social Security card because it's a Social
Right.
Security benefit. It has
Right.
nothing to do with immigration.
Right.
In fact, the Social Security Administration, if they had their druthers, they don't want to invest. They don't want to be immigration
No.
agency,
No,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But so you could be completely illegal, go into the Social Security Administration, get a very valid Social Security number. You're registered, and if you got a job, you can collect those taxes. You can collect those benefits.
Right.
So, anyways,
So they're not stealing anything. They actually did it legally if they walked into Social Security, because that's a big controversy.
Absolutely.
All these people that are getting our health care benefits and doing these things, going in, they're doing it, and they're illegals, and they're doing it under the radar.
There's a huge long list of myths.
Yeah.
And they're myths mostly put out by labor unions and by very conservative right-wing politicians that do not want another foreign national in the U.S.
Right.
And one of the myths is that if you're illegal, that their hands are out, they're not working, and all they're doing is draining the country's social benefits. In 1996, President Clinton passed a law that actually made it so that even legal green card holders, illegals illegals are one thing, but even legal green card holders. So if you marry a German national and the German citizen comes here and becomes a U.S. green card holder, that person is prohibited for 10 years from receiving any type of federal benefit.
So it isn't as easy as it seems.
And
Why would you want to come here?
and if your U.S. citizen, if your German national, now U.S. green card holder, German spouse, then received some type of federal benefit, that agency could actually go after you to reimburse them. So that's one of those Fox News headlines that's completely untrue. That illegals definitely, and even lawful green card holders within the first 10 years are not entitled to any federal benefit. Now, states and local communities can provide benefits if they want, but most states, even as liberal as Massachusetts has really made it very difficult even to get a driver's license. So there's less and less benefits that are available to someone that's illegal here. So that's a myth. But it's easy to get political votes by beating up on immigrants. So the president passed 3 executive orders, one of which was revoked yesterday and reissued yesterday. The first one was 5 days into his presidency, and it was for border security. And what this executive order was instructing Department of Homeland Security to do a feasibility study about creating a southern border wall. Cost $21 billion, stretch over 1,250 miles.
One into the other, yeah.
And it would be
Through Texas.
It would be a construction feet beyond the Big Dig and the Hoover Dam.
right.
Everyone that's looked down there says it would be incredibly difficult to build
Well, there's
a wall.
rivers and all
Canyons.
kinds. And canyons.
And canyons. But whatever,
Right.
that was part of that executive order.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was to detain people based on suspicion of immigration violations. Now, going back to law school, now I'm going to go back almost 30 years, but you can't be arrested
Oh, you're
based
so
on
young.
suspicion of a crime.
No.
The police have to have probable cause
Right.
to believe that you're committing a crime to arrest
Right.
you. But nevertheless, this border security executive order talks about building a wall, start grabbing people on a suspicion of immigration violations, expedited deportation hearings, which there's already a provision for that, and last, that it was the first mention of creating more federal and state and local partnerships as a force multiplier, so that already Customs and Border Protection and ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, the two law enforcement agencies that really enforce immigration laws, they're already understaffed.
Right.
Okay, there's not enough of them to do all of the things that this administration or even the prior administration wants done.
Right, and my understanding, and this is only from news reports and reading and listening to all different kinds of news reports, is that there's an understaffing issue throughout the
Correct.
the
And another
administration.
executive order that's unrelated to this, there's a hiring freeze. So
Yes.
the question is, if you want to enforce immigration laws, how do you hire more agents?
Right.
How do you hire more judges? How do you hire more prosecutors? How do you have large enough just courtrooms? Do you have enough courtrooms and
Right.
enough facilities to detain
do it,
people?
right,
So all of these things require money.
Really?
And at the end of the day, the only one that could fund the executive branch to do this is Congress.
Right.
So we're miles away, but these are just
Right.
presidential proclamations
Right.
that he would like done.
Okay, so this was not this past one.
This was the initial.
This is the initial.
Correct.
So now, as of March 16th, we have a whole new thing that was a little more thought out.
It wasn't, actually.
Oh, I thought it
so,
was.
So what happened was there was another executive order done that first, announced that first week. And what that said was it was the Foreign Terrorism Protection Executive
Right,
Order.
Right.
And what
That's
this
what had
one
all
said,
the stuff at the
Correct.
airports
and things.
and
right.
the ACLU was sitting in the
So
lobbies.
part of that executive order was he stated that people from these seven countries, these seven predominantly all Muslim countries,
Right, right. Which included Iraq at the time, correct?
included Iraq, all these countries, their citizens, whether they had lawful visas to enter
Right.
or they were U.S. lawful permanent residents, that none of them would be allowed back in the country. All their visas would be canceled. And that's where he's gotten beaten up by literally every federal court in the country.
Right.
Because these are people that went to the embassy, were vetted, and were issued a visitor's visa or a non-immigrant visa of some sort
And it's not
to come
easy
to
to
the
be
U.S.
vetted, right?
Correct, it is not easy.
I mean, they ask you many, 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 many
And it can
questions.
take weeks for them to do background checks on you.
Right.
Secondly, so you can't take away their visas without a process by which you take them away.
Right.
You can't just do it by proclamation.
Right, you can't just say.
The second thing is you have people that are U.S. lawful permanent residents. So based on statute, federal
Right.
law, federal regulations, these people were awarded their green cards. So just because they were born in Iraq, but if now they're a U.S. green card holder, you can't, and they just happen to be traveling when the proclamation or
Right.
the executive order came
Because
out.
it was done in secret and it was done so quickly, right?
Correct.
Right.
It was immediate. It was immediate
Right,
effect.
right.
So you can't just take away their green cards.
Right.
I mean, you're violating federal
Right,
law.
right.
So what was done very inarticulately on January 27th was revoked yesterday and revised. So the new executive order takes Iraq off the 7-country list, so now,
Now,
it's 6
why
countries.
did he take Iraq off?
There was pressure from the military because there were so many Iraqis that, I mean, they're our allies.
Right, right,
Okay? We liberated them.
right.
All right.
Right.
There's so many Iraqis that were instrumental during the 12-year war that were promised benefits that we're now reneging on.
Right.
So the military, this is what the news reports are reporting,
Right.
that the military has pressured or convinced the administration that Iraqi nationals do not pose a threat. Now, interestingly, those 7 nationals from those 7 countries have never committed a terrorist act in the
No, I
United
know.
States.
It's Saudi Arabia where that
And that's
committed
where we start running into whether his desire to truly make the country safe from terrorists is what he really wants to do, or if this is just grandstanding so he can make his political electorate, his base, feel comfortable that he's doing what he promised he would do.
Right.
Because if he truly wanted to deter terrorism or terrorists from entering the United States, all the hijackers on September 11th were Saudi Arabian nationals,
Right, right.
and they're not on the list.
And the ones that have committed what I would call hate crimes, terrorist acts, are homegrown here.
U.S. citizens.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and Saudi Arabia is in a war with Yemen right now.
Right.
And the Yemenis, I think it was Yemenis radicals that bombed the USS Cole in the Gulf.
Yeah.
And, killed U.S. sailors. So there are terrorists from these 7 countries.
Right.
But the current vetting system is more than adequate because they're just not coming here
Right.
and committing terrorist crimes.
Right.
And again, it all goes back to why were certain countries left off this list,
Right.
right? Indonesia and Malaysia are the largest Muslim countries in the world,
Right.
yet they're not on the list.
Right.
Saudi Arabia is one of the largest countries on the Muslim countries in the
right.
world, and they're left off the list. So how can it be a terrorism executive order when it's not a sweeping Muslim order? It's just on
No.
particular countries. And again, my one person's opinion is that this is him grandstanding to make it look like he's protecting Americans
Right.
from
Right,
radical
right.
terrorists.
So how does all of this big picture
Yes.
affect Massachusetts, and then let's get down to Little Cape Cod?
Okay, so it has a trickle effect. So we have the president making immigration one of his main priorities.
Right.
And personally, I think it's the same mistake President Obama made by making healthcare his initial priority. There are so many other problems in this country that
Right.
need to be addressed, other than immigration being the absolute first thing he does. Healthcare being the absolute first thing. I think he's wasting a tremendous amount of political capital. There's a lot of people that voted for him, a lot of people that support him,
Sure.
a lot of people want to see do well. I think using immigration as the first issue was absolutely a mistake because it's polarized the country.
Right.
So what we have is immigration is now at the forefront of the media. And not because of that, but in addition to that, there was a White House internal memorandum, which was a draft of another executive order that goes after legal work visa programs. I know that the Massachusetts administration is scared out of their bejesus because the president in this draft executive order wants to go after all legal work visas. So these are programs that foreign nationals come into the U.S. They're sponsored by hospitals,
Right.
colleges, universities, white-collar companies that want to come here that make the country stronger with the brightest, smartest people in the world.
Right.
Massachusetts having a white-collar economy, very
Right.
little manufacturing, like California, San Francisco area, like Dallas, like Minneapolis, like other high-tech education hubs around the country. Our economy in Massachusetts is extremely dependent on legal work visa programs.
Sure.
And this memo says that he wants Department of Labor and DHS to review all work visa programs and to vet them for fraud and abuse. There's fraud and abuse in every federal program in the
Everywhere.
country. Okay, but how does this affect Massachusetts' economy? Well, Northeastern University, just one school out of our 80, just one school has over 1,500 foreign students that go there. I have to believe that there's 2,000 doctors and researchers, at least 2,000 to 5,000 doctors and researchers that are working at our universities and hospitals.
They're working
and
here on Cape Cod in our hospitals.
Hui, and research institutions in Massachusetts here on legal visas to make Massachusetts the best, so that we'll have the best hospitals,
The
best
number one place to
universities.
live.
Exactly, the number one place to live. And we have a tremendously huge, integrated, welcoming immigration community and atmosphere. So if they attack these programs, the administration is the Commonwealth administration is very scared that it's going to incredibly affect our economy, because
Right.
it's part of Massachusetts economy like no other community in the U.S. other than maybe San Francisco. How does it filter down to the Cape? Well, here on the Cape, we have an annual shortage of seasonal workers. Housekeepers predominantly,
Right.
dishwashers, line cooks, landscapers.
Right.
Okay, I would say that we have anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 foreign students that come in to fill foreign workers that come in to fill these jobs. So it was until about 6-7 years ago. It was about 5,000 H-2B seasonal workers and a couple of thousand J-1 workers. So the J-1 workers are college students, foreign college students. So they're at the University of Dublin.
Right.
In between their summer breaks, they can pay this exchange company for a trip to the U.S. and a visa
Right.
to come to the United States to work for up to 4 months. They're allowed to be a tourist, and they're allowed to work if they want to be. So that visa program used to be just supplemented by Irish kids, right here in the
Well,
Cape.
now it's all the Eastern Europeans.
Correct. Irish economy's booming.
Right.
And
Just like
and-
our economy, which went
Right.
south in 2008, has now come back.
Right.
But our culture has changed. So, I talk to a lot of older folks on Cape Cod who go, well, I remember, when I was in my early 30s or whatever, all the college kids would want to come here, and, and I came here back in the 1950s, and it's not that way anymore.
It isn't. There is, first of all, Melinda, you and I are both on the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. And,
Yes.
and we know that, first of all, the demographics on the Cape is changing tremendously,
And rapidly.
very rapidly. We just don't have a lot of young people on the Cape, period.
Right.
And then you add to that problem a shortage of affordable housing.
Right.
You add to that problem, you have the Airbnbs of the world, where it is, if you have an extra room in your house, you will make much more money renting that out once a week for $500
Right.
or $400 in the middle of the summertime
Right.
than you are charging a college student $500 a week to live there every day,
Right.
so they can have a job scooping ice cream
Right.
or flipping burgers.
Right.
Okay, so there's a housing crisis on the Cape,
Right.
affordable housing for year-round workers, never mind for
Right.
seasonal workers.
Right. We know that.
Then there's also, add to that, you have a dynamic where if you do have a college kid or a high school child that wants to work in the U.S. On the Cape, first of all, they should be over 18 years old, because if they're not, they can't work half the equipment
Right.
that are used
You're
in
supposed
restaurants
to-
anymore.
right.
They can't be on a sanitizer, they can't
Which
be
is
on a
not a
slicer.
bad thing.
Not a bad thing, but because we are more civilized now.
Right,
and
right.
You
We
know,
don't
the
want them to
rules-
cut their fingers
correct,
off.
or burn themselves,
Or burn themselves,
or
right.
put themselves on fire.
Right.
So, so the regulations have made it harder and harder for high school kids to work.
Right.
College kids, every school except for a handful, every school in New England now starts college, and especially if you go to school down south, every college in the country starts before Labor Day.
Right.
They don't get out of school, college students don't get out of school until the first or second week of May.
Right.
So they're only working May through second week of August, when the season on the Cape is from whenever Easter falls until about Thanksgiving.
Right. It is. It is.
So you have kids you have students that can potentially only work 2.5 months.
Right.
Okay, where a restaurant or hotel needs somebody all through September and October.
And they need to get stuff on their resume that makes them more
And
when they graduate.
that's right, and that's the other dynamic. is that we've done anecdotally, we've done some studies, asked employers why they can't attract college students or high school level students. And one of the reasons is that if you are a high school, college level student that's looking forward to college, it is much more important for that student now to put on their resume that they worked in my legal office for minimum wage making photocopies where they learn nothing. Okay.
Well, now, Matt,
well, they
come
learn how to
on.
use the, we're old enough. They know how to use a Xerox machine or a copier.
They don't use the fax machine anymore because we don't fax.
That's right. But basically, all they do is make photocopies and get the mail and sort the mail for me.
Yeah.
Rather than going to a restaurant here in the Cape, working 6 tables, having 4 people per table. Everybody wants something different. Having some social skills, having
Right.
some true multitasking skills.
Right, right.
Learn what it means to get a paycheck with taxes taken out of it. Show up at the designated time when the
Right.
shift starts.
Right.
So instead of doing those jobs that I did, that you did, that
Right.
the last generation did, because college and jobs in the professional world is becoming so competitive, we're finding that most kids cannot afford to put down in their resume that they worked at ABC ice cream shop scooping ice cream.
Right.
They'd much rather have a resume.
Right.
Another myth that I want to dispel is that that H-2Bs take jobs from American workers. So I think we've dispelled the myth that there's workers that are actually wanting these jobs that aren't getting it because
Right.
a Jamaican worker comes in on the
Right.
H-2B or a Bulgarian college kid comes in.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's who my son, who has the restaurant in Falmouth on Main Street, they have a lot of Eastern European workers.
Right.
And they're terrific guys. I mean, they happen to have guy waiters. They're terrific. And they don't have a lot of them. They have 3, but
Right.
and they're hardworking. They show up on time. They don't ask for anything.
Right.
They're
They don't
fun.
they don't need a resume builder.
No, they
Right.
don't. And they go back and then they come back.
Right. I assure you, especially the H-2B program, the seasonal worker program, there is not a sane business person on Cape Cod that would hire me or another law firm or agency to bring in an H-2B worker if they could find a U.S. worker.
Right.
So, just so you understand how
Right.
the process works, for an employer to bring in an H-2B worker, let's just say they want 5 dishwashers. They have to start the process in October or November the preceding year, submit a job description to the U.S. Department of Labor, get a prevailing wage, and that wage is indisputable, right? So if
Right.
it says you have to pay $14 an hour, you have to pay $14 an hour.
Right.
So they get a prevailing wage by Christmas or New Year's. Then in January they submit their application to the Department of Labor, and then hopefully some weeks later
Yep.
they're told that they have to prove they can't find a U.S. worker. They have to post that job in
Yep.
the Massachusetts Job
Yep.
Bank for at least 30 days. Sometimes it's about almost 3 months. So it's on the Massachusetts State Job Bank seeking American workers. They have to place it in 2 ads in the Cape Cod Times. One has to be a Sunday. They have to physically post the ad in their workplace for 15 days.
Right.
So during this month, 2 to 3 to 4 week period, they have to actively try to find U.S. workers.
Right.
Okay, I will say this year in my office for about 1,000 occupations, we received 1 resume from 1 person in Colorado. Okay,
There you go.
so the employer has to get a prevailing wage start in October.
Right.
They have to hire a law firm. The legal fees and these agencies that do it are anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000.
Right.
They have to abide by the prevailing wage, and they have to pay that prevailing wage to all U.S. workers.
Right.
So the Massachusetts minimum wage is $11, but if the prevailing wage says dishwashers are, I think it's $13 this year, you have to pay all other U.S. workers in the same position $13.
Right.
You have to pay the foreign nationals $13. You have to offer them the exact same benefits,
Right.
meaning if you fly them in from Jamaica and you have an applicant from Colorado, you've got to
Yeah,
fly
fly
that
that-
person in
right,
from Colorado.
right.
You've got to pay for them to go home.
Right.
So they have to pay them exactly the same.
Right.
They have to give them the exact same benefits. They have to do an ad in the Cape Cod Times, which costs almost $2,500.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now they're $8,000 into it for 5 dishwashers.
Right.
Then when they finally get to the point where they submit the application for their visa, there's an annual cap. And the annual cap, believe it or not, for this entire season for us is going to expire tomorrow, maybe today or tomorrow.
So what happens?
So they'll have this labor cert, and they won't be able to bring in any workers that are sitting outside the country.
So what's going to happen is you're going to go to a restaurant, let's say a fast food restaurant,
Right.
and there where you go and get your scallops.
What happens is this. I had 2 employers last year that one employee owns 4 restaurants. He literally could not open up his restaurant for 2 months
Because
there were such delays
There
in
you
the
go.
process, okay? And what he said to me was, Matt, I want 10 H-2B workers for both these restaurants, and they're critical to the operation of it. That means that the other 20 American workers that are working side by side don't have jobs for 2 months because I can't open up the restaurant.
Right.
So the H-2B workers are supplement to the U.S. workers.
Right.
They are not paid under the table $3 an hour taking American jobs.
Right.
It's just an absolute myth. So what employer in the world
Right.
would go spend $8,000 to $10,000 a
None.
year
None.
for a crapshoot that
Might.
process they might get people every single year
Right.
if they had no other choice
Right.
but to supplement the workforce with these
Right.
foreign workers.
Right.
And during the recession, we saw a drop off. So we saw it during the recession where there were available U.S. workers.
Right.
Employers didn't use the H-2B program because they're not insane. Right? They're not spending $8,000 to $10,000 for
That's
U.S.
it. That's it. That's
Jamaican
it.
workers
Yeah.
if they have the U.S. workers.
Right. Right. Well, Matt, I wish we could talk for another hour.
You talk for 24 hours. Yeah.
We could. Because I just think it's so important that people understand this. Understand it here in our community, understand it on Cape Cod, understand it in the state, understand it in New England, and so on and so
Nationally, yeah.
and nationally. It is, everybody, again, has preconceived ideas. And, our new president, I think we all want to see him succeed, but we want to see him succeed with the honesty and forthrightness that all presidents before him have had, whether
Right.
it's been Reagan, all of them, including Obama. So I think that's what our country is so separated at the moment, and so at odds with itself. So anytime we can give them some really good information, straightforward, the truth, as I like to call it, it's
Right.
not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
It is.
And you are so well versed. Amazing to me.
Well, it's kind of my job.
Because I know you as a regular guy, and I thought, does he know what he's talking about? You really know what you're talking about.
Immigration is my job, so hopefully my clients can have some trust that I know what I'm talking about.
And I know you were the chairman of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, but where do you come from originally?
Lexington, Mass. The rough and tumble streets of Lexington, Mass.
Oh, there you go. Tough life.
But no, I'm an immigrant myself. So
Were your parents from
Korea?
From Korea?
Right.
Okay.
So what was interesting is I was able to have some time with Vinny DeSimato, our senator here in Sandwich.
Sure.
And Vinny and I spent a couple hours discussing immigration laws. And it turns out that we're a month apart in age.
Oh my gosh.
And we're a year apart. He immigrated here from the Cape Verdean Islands with his family within a year of my family immigrating here. And we were
you born when they
discussing-
immigrated?
He was born
Here.
there. No, Vinny was born.
And you were
Cape
born in
Verde,
Korea?
And I was born in Korea.
I didn't
and
realize.
we
Oh my
both
gosh.
immigrated here about the
That's
age
great.
of 2 or 3 years old.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
in our lives have had eerie parallels in our moderate, community success.
Oh, that's great.
And business success.
That's great.
But we are like most immigrants.
Right.
I mean, there's always bad actors. There
there's
absolutely is.
Well, excuse me, I'm white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. My family goes way back, right? I'm just saying to you, we had a guy who's in our family who stole horses, so way back when. So, there
Right.
are people out there. So.
And there's probably slave owners,
Oh,
ancestors
absolutely,
in a little bit.
absolutely.
I just got off a radio show literally right before I came here, and I got into a debate with one of our local sheriffs who wants all law enforcement to enforce immigration laws.
Oh my
and,
goodness.
And he said it is irresponsible of the American people to have sanctuary cities where they order their police officers not to hire, not to enforce immigration laws when it's right in front of them. And I, where I don't disagree with him, where I disagree with him, that police officers are put in a very difficult situation.
Right. They
So
have to
they are-
prove it?
Correct. They have to
Come on.
understand the intricacies of immigration law and determine whether this person is illegally here or not, on top of whatever crime they stopped them for.
Right.
So it is, I think it's going to put police officers in an impossible situation because they're going to have town administrators and mayors that tell them, don't enforce immigration laws. Yet the police officers are supposed to enforce all laws.
Right.
You're going to also have police officers that are put in towns where they're going to be told, go enforce immigration laws.
Right.
We want you to do that on every single traffic stop. If they
Right.
look foreign to you, I want you to enforce it.
To me, and we do have to wrap this up, but to me what was most striking when the original order came out from the feds was they put the people as they were coming in through the airports, they became the powerful. The power was given to them.
Mm-hmm.
You can come in, you can't come in. And that to me gets really scary because you know what? People who feel like they don't have power and then they're given a little bit of power, they tend to overextend. Now, a police officer has to keep the laws. We all know that.
Correct.
But if they're the kind of police officer, yeah, you know, maybe I've had a bad day, maybe I'm this or that, they may tend to exert that power because I've got it. I can keep you or I can throw you out.
Well,
and that's a bad thing.
It is a bad thing, but I'm going to be a little bit more forgiving and liberal. In that.
Am I being too conservative?
No, you are being too conservative. No, what I've learned anecdotally, I have no statistics or evidence of this, but being in law enforcement 25 years ago or 20, and talking to some old friends, there is an incredible morale problem at CBP, the border and the inspectors. There is an incredible morale problem with ICE. So you have federal agents that are told to enforce the immigration laws. They feel that they've been hamstrung a little bit, although President Obama deported more people.
I know than anybody.
In his 8 years than the previous two administrations put together.
Right.
Even though he did that, they were told to ignore certain people and go for those people ignored. So there is an incredible morale issue.
Sure.
So I think people have asked me since these executive orders, is there anything new? Are there more raids? Are there new programs? First of all, there's no funding for any new programs. There's not even funding for the 5,000 CBP or 10,000 ICE officers that he once hired. Congress has to fund that.
Right.
There's no money. They're not even at normal strength at the current levels.
Right.
Okay, so these immigration enforcement officers, they're undermanned. They have very low morale, and now you have a president that says, we're going to give you more money. We'll see. We're going to give you more power, and we want you to more strictly enforce immigration laws. So have I seen an uptick in raids or new programs? No. But what I am seeing is that the immigration officers they're a little bit more emboldened, they're more confident, they are reading the laws a little bit stricter. Okay? So I think it's not, they just have more power.
Oh, I see.
just think that they feel like they can execute their jobs
better.
a little bit more vigorously than they were.
Right.
So I do see an uptick in denials at the airport,
Right.
uptick in denials at USCIS. That people are being picked up a little bit quicker or easier and handed over. But I think it's more they feel like they're empowered to do so, and the president's got their back.
Sure.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sitting here and talking with me
Happy to do it.
for a few minutes. It went fast for me. I hope it went fast for everybody else. You are, as I said, incredibly knowledgeable, and I appreciate it, and I understand it a little better, and God only knows.
Great.
There's
Happy
a plus.
to come back to.
Actually, that would be fabulous. Let's see where we are in 6 months to a year.
Yes.
40 characters later,
Right.
and 140 characters later. Anyway, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Melinda.
Thank you for joining me for another Cape Conversation. Oh, Matthew Lee, fabulous immigration attorney from the Boston area, lives right here in Sandwich on Cape Cod. Wonderful conversation about immigration and allowing people into our country. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope to see you again next time on another Cape Conversations.